What my Hispanic heritage means to me, it means family. Hispanic families are typically very tight-knit communities, and usually the households are multi-generational. So we get to grow up together and spend lots of time together. It's an amazing feeling being a part of a Hispanic family.
Being Hispanic means a lot to me. It is who I am. It's my identity. It is also part of my culture, and I embrace it. And it's very, it means a lot to me. It's more of a self-reflection this time of the year when we're talking about Hispanic Heritage Month.
Family, of course, is number one. I take pride in my ethnicity, my heritage, and I just, wouldn't want it any other way.
So I'm very proud to be Mexican, so I've always been brought up to be very proud of my heritage. So anytime we talk about Hispanic Heritage Month, which I don't like the word Hispanic, I use Latino instead. But anyway, it just shows, the pride of being, enriched in a really rich culture.
Within our community, the Hispanic culture is based on family unity. There's a lot of traditions, a lot of traditional dishes, a lot of traditional festivals and family activities.
So my Hispanic heritage means everything to me. Being raised with a Hispanic mom and dad, the food was a big deal, and even to this day I love like homemade tortillas, and I love homemade beans, and just the idea of having a close-knit family.
How I celebrate my heritage is I have a big old plate of quesadillas.
I don't even know if I celebrate it. I mean, it's just part of me, you know what I mean? So for instance, I could be all my family speak Spanish and English. So things of that nature. So it's just part of our, our culture that we just celebrate it all the time. We eat menudo on Sundays. Things like that. It's just who we are. It isn't like I'm saying, hey, I'm gonna go celebrate it.
We honor our ancestors, our loved ones that passed. We don't take anything for granted. We cherish every moment that we have together as a family.
What Hispanic Heritage Month means to me is it's a time for me to celebrate my lineage, to remember the sacrifices that my abuelos made so that their kids could have a better future.
It educates the public and different other heritage on what we came through, what we went through, how our voices were primarily underrated. So with the knowledge of that and people coming forth and just talking about it really educates the other ethnic groups on how we came about and what we stand for and what we're trying to perceive in the future.
Hispanic Heritage Month means to me it's a glimpse of a celebration of many different things. I think it's still, don't get me wrong, I appreciate Hispanic Heritage Month, but this is, we're the United States. This is a country of immigrants. We should be celebrating all ethnicities every year.
It allows us the opportunity to break away from stereotypes. When we learn backgrounds of people who have come before us, who have done really great things, we can learn that not everybody that comes from a different place, namely Mexico, are bad or come to the U.S. to hurt.
I believe that other cultures benefit from learning about the history and understand where Hispanics are coming from, because for such a long time Hispanics were referenced as dirty, as illiterate, and so on. And that is not true, because Hispanics, when given the tools, can achieve high levels of education and become very successful individuals.
I think I hear a lot of times that from other people saying that we need to teach our younger children about what it means. But I also think that we also as ourselves need to reflect and educate ourselves and remind ourselves of who we are, and also our older generation the same way, so that way we can have more of a balance to where we don't forget where we came from or our roots.
I definitely feel the ties between my Hispanic heritage and the city of Kyle. One aspect is the You know, if you think about the origins of Kyle, before it was a town, it was ranching and farming community, and many of the Hispanic people lived and worked on these ranches and helped build the economy at that time. Later, when the town was formed, they started small communities, they bought homes, they built homes, and, you know, helped, you know, nurture the growth of this city when it first started. Last year, during a council meeting, there was a resident came during public comment. His closing statements, I never forget them, were, "And I still live in the home that your dad built, Councilmember Rizzo." And I thought that was an awesome statement. When he finished it, it just made me really glad to hear that. It was awesome.
For me, it was very progressive. Like, my grandparents worked the farms. Like, my grandmother eventually upgraded into a house cleaning position. And then my parents, my mom was a cotton picker when she was young. And then she had a family of 11 or 12, and they all did that. And then my dad joined the military, and then nobody before me had went to college. And so, and I really don't even know where I got the drive to do that. I guess I just wanted to, you know, I saw the progression, and I saw, like, my mom working hard to see, you know, we eventually owned a home, like, when I was in high school, and that was a big deal. And to now, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I owe society a lot, because for me to be where I'm at is not because I was lucky, you know. My daughter, bless her heart, got all her dad's traits, and so she doesn't have the, you know, dark hair, dark eyes. And she came home from school one time and she said, "Oh, they said I'm not Mexican." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "Well, you know, they don't think I'm Mexican." And she was okay with that. And I was like, the blood that runs through your body is half Mexican.
We migrated all over California, working in the fields. So that was a big hardship. You know, it was really hard for us we never owned a home or anything like that. But, you know, luckily for my own kids, it's a lot different story. You know, I'm a professor, my wife's a professor. The struggles, of course, have been minimal for them. Of course, they face racism. You know, we face racism even right now as a 55-year-old man, 54-year-old man, and we experience racism on a daily basis. And so it's something we have to, you know, continually face it. Same thing with my kids. You know, they have blonde hair and blue eyes, but oftentimes, a lot of times, they often hear derogatory comments towards Hispanics and other ethnicities, and it makes them feel uncomfortable because people just assume that they're white, and I put that in big quotes.
So I wanted to bring awareness to our young people who have no idea how it is that they benefit from all the things in our societies today because of the struggles that their parents and grandparents and so on went through. I remember when I was in my junior year in high school, I went to see my high school counselor. And the school was, for the most part, Anglo teachers and administration. I went to my counselor and I told her that I wanted to go to college. And she looked at me and she said, "You're not college material." She said, "Hispanic girls get married and they have children, and that's what they do. So get it out of your mind that you're going to college." I was so disillusioned by those words, and I believed it. And so as a consequence, I ended up getting married and had my first child. But in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, I want an education, because without an education, I will not make it out of the fields. And so from that point on, when I was about 20, I began to go back to school. In one semester here, one semester there, all throughout my life, until you know, recently when I finally finished and got my master's.
Early on, I know that the Hispanic people were not looked at as equals. You know, one of the experiences I felt when I was growing up was when I first started school. So both my parents worked, so that meant I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and my mom's parents spoke a lot of Spanish, pretty much fluently Spanish, and very little English. So when I started school, I had a lot of trouble because I spoke English and Spanish, a mixture of the two. So, you know, it was very frustrating for some of my teachers, and eventually I just stopped speaking Spanish completely. It wasn't until high school that I started embracing the language again.
I was in school in the 70s, so I was actually labeled special ed. That's how bilingual ed students were at that point. So, You know, growing up in the track system, I was never destined to be going to go to college. Unfortunately for me, I played sports, specifically basketball, which gave me the entryway to go to college. But no, I mean, I was routinely told, you're not going to go to college, you're going to flunk out. You know, you're going to do this and that. In my case, you know, I used that as motivation, and you know, I got my PhD. I now have, I think, 7 books published. I have 30-something articles. I travel all over the world, giving lectures on what I'm talking to you about. And people just look at me and they, you know, now we live in a nice house, we drive a nice car, and they assume a whole bunch of stuff from me, and they don't have no idea of how tough it was.
I think through the generations, when it came to individuals speaking Spanish, there was a time in an era where it was forbidden to be spoken to while you're at school or at work or in a place of business. But now, as times have been changing and generations are changing as well, it's more acceptable to be able to be more open with your language and your culture, which is, I think, a great thing, because it's opening new doors for other people to see who you are and to see the vibrance of your culture, and being able to let everybody see the good and the positive things that Hispanic and Latino people bring to society as a whole.
I think we can benefit just learning each other's cultures. I mean, not just Hispanic, but all cultures, and just to understand a little bit of everybody. Just, you know, understand what they go through, what they went through, what their parents, grandparents, past generations, and what kind of generation in the future that wants to come about. I think it will really help us all out together as a whole.
You know, I definitely want to be someone that a Hispanic young person is growing up thinking about maybe a life of service or worried about what the future holds. I'd love to be that person they can look up to and that looks like them, and encourage them that, you know, they can achieve anything that they feel is possible.
To the Hispanic community, and especially to our Hispanic youth, I would like to say that we have a very powerful and rich and beautiful culture.
You know, I think I would just like to leave the young people with a message. So este mensaje es para los jóvenes de nuestra comunidad. Tus abuelos y tus papás han sacrificado mucho y han trabajado muy duro para que tú puedas tener un mejor futuro. With that being said, don't sell yourself short. Sky's the limit. Please work hard and achieve all your goals. Este es el mensaje que yo le doy a mis hijos siempre, todos los días.